Some of you may have saw my book, Tooth Fairy Government, out there on the side. This is the way Tooth Fairy Government got started. I was giving a speech once that went like this. I call it Tooth Fairy Government. It's where they take your quarter, put it under their kid's pillow, and make believe that the world is 25 cents richer. Now, the only people who believe in a tooth fairy are young children and old socialists. We should love our children, and we should love our socialists, but we shouldn't let either one of them run the country. And you also, some of you that know me have heard me say this many times, liberty is the absence of government in choice. Government is the absence of liberty in choice. And tyranny is the absence of choice in government. So liberty begins in the mind. Everything that is began as a thought, an idea, a picture in the imagination of one single person. There are only two ways to bring that picture into reality. One is through voluntary cooperation, and the other is through coercive force. Writers do not coerce. We develop and exchange ideas to inform, to persuade, to inspire. Occasionally, one of us will develop an idea so powerful that our readers are compelled to act. We're fortunate tonight to have one of these rare and gifted authors with us. Thomas E. Woods Jr. is a senior fellow of the Ludwig von Mises Institute. He holds a bachelor's degree in history from Harvard and his master's, MPhil, and PhD from Columbia University. Tom is the author of 10 books, most recently, Nullification, How to Resist Federal Tyranny in the 21st Century. It is a call to action for all of us who love liberty and oppose tyranny. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Woods.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to try, well, that does sound like there's some echo here, but I'm going to actually try not to use this system because it sounds not too good to me. Yeah. So I'm going to use a booming voice. I used to do community theater years ago, and I think I can be heard without it. Now, is that the case? Everybody hears me? Yeah. All right, I'm going to keep it this level. So those of you who are in front are thinking, what the heck is this racket this guy's making? Sorry about that, but it's a necessity. Well, first of all, thank you, Tim. Thanks to Todd and all the Wisconsin Campaign for Liberty people. Just thanks to everybody. I mean, it really, you are honoring me by blowing your Saturday listening to me. So I really appreciate it. It's very generous of you. And those of you who have bought copies of the Nullification book and other books, I appreciate that too. You know, my kids do need to eat, so that's helpful. Thanks. I'm not trying to guilt you into buying any of the ones that are left out over there. They've gone long stretches on just water, so don't worry about them. We have just moved, by the way. I'm coming to you from my new home airport of Kansas City. We now live in Topeka. So we've just more or less finished the moving process. But do you ever really finish the moving process? Ever? So I'm surprised that I'm still able to carry on the speaking engagements in the midst of just knowing when I go home it's still a fiasco, it's just horrific. So now I've gotten to the point where I was telling people before, I think to myself, if I had information that I was trying to keep from the CIA, all they would have to do to get it out of me is make me move. You know, I would be saying, look, I'll tell you anything you want to know, just don't make me unpack another box. I am pleading with you. So now I've gotten to the point where now I'm just defying the boxes. I'm saying, look, you know, I have gotten by in this new house for 4 days just fine without whatever is in this particular box. So I'm just not opening it. I'm just going to leave it there, and we're going to go on with my life and see what happens. So far, so good. Well, nevertheless, though, what's left of me is very glad to be here with you guys. I've been in Wisconsin a few times. I've never been to Eau Claire before, but very glad to do this. And I understand some of you folks got to meet at the Campaign for Liberty State Convention. You got to meet Professor Yuri Maltsev, whom we should hear from a lot more, who's right here in Wisconsin, and is a super smart guy and totally on our side, and was a defector from the Soviet Union. I mean, this is like, people have sort of forgotten about this, what it means to defect. this guy was an advisor to Gorbachev. Gorbachev did not listen to him, so he was a good guy. But his stories are just unbelievable. Living in the Soviet Union, being an advisor, and then actually being one of the last defectors. And so now I know, I understand completely. We all have our mixed or otherwise feelings about Glenn Beck, but Yuri Maltsev was on Glenn Beck a couple months ago to talk about the road to serfdom, and I was on that show too, and it was fun and everything. I have not been on for Nullification, by the way. That they'll go so far. Yeah, F.A. Hayek, but Nullification, no talking about that. But Yuri has got one of these personalities where somebody was saying to me today, everything he says is a soundbite. He's perfect for television. So they're talking about his trips to Cuba, and he's talking. People think that the healthcare system in Cuba is just wonderful. We've all heard wonderful stories. It's great. The life expectancy is 170. It's unbelievable. And Yuri just says, look, the only kind of healthcare they have in Cuba is swim to Miami. So when they were lining up this Beck show, I'm talking to one of these producers on the phone. They say, well, can you think of anybody else who would do a good job talking about Road to Serfdom? I said, I think it's a crime that Yuri Maltsev is not on TV. He should be on. All right, so they got to interview him before and make sure he's going to be all right. Well, he's charming the pants off them over the phone. He's got them laughing like crazy. They call me back and say, Glenn is going to love this guy. Where has this guy been? Unbelievable. So he's a real gem and totally sound on everything, totally reliable, extremely smart, a real hero. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but so I'm glad to be here in the land of Maltsev and with all you good folks. Now, what I'm going to say a little bit tonight, I'm going to talk obviously about the subject of nullification, though of course a lot of you people already know all about this. Nothing for me to teach you. You already know about it. But I'm going to talk about it sort of in the context of this kind of way of thinking, that what we have observed happening. And a lot of times it's easy for us to get discouraged. Well, how could you not be discouraged, right? I mean, you're governed by people who, like the best people, other than Ron Paul and the usual exceptions, but I mean, the best people who govern you are idiots. Like, those are the best ones. Because then the other ones are like they're either idiots or they're sinister. So they look like idiots, but they're actually really sinister. Now, some people say to me that they think people like Nancy Pelosi really are not as dumb as they look. That actually they are Machiavellian figures who want to make us think they're dumb, and that's what makes them all the more sinister, because secretly they're in the background engaging in all their machinations. But my view is that Nancy Pelosi would have to be an Oscar-winning actress for this to be just an act. Like, I'm convinced that some of them really are as dumb as a stick. Like, it's not just an act they're putting on to scam us. Now, on the other hand, this has happened because Dwight Eisenhower gave people the impression that he was just a regular guy, and he smiled a lot, and he kind of stumbled over his words and wasn't all that bright. But we now know, now that we have access to his personal papers, that in fact he was extremely hands-on, very knowledgeable. He dominated every meeting, but he didn't want to come across that way to the American public. He wanted to seem like a regular guy. So he actually did pull this off. I don't think that's what's really going on here. I think we have people who genuinely don't know very much. In fact, when Nancy Pelosi was asked, where do you find the authority for this health care legislation, she laughs and wonders if that's a serious question and moves on to the next question. So she can't even, like a sinister person would have at least given a dumb answer. Like, you at least answer the question. You say, well, the Commerce Clause or the General Welfare Clause, and of course those clauses don't justify this, but at least say something. Don't make it look like we're living in a banana republic that has no law. Like, at least give an answer. She can't even think of a fake answer. She can't even think of a phony answer. That's sort of the situation we have now. In fact, that actually kind of reminds me of the state of the student population. 30 years ago, I have a friend who teaches economics at Auburn University. 30 years ago, he says the students in his class would show up with their heads filled with economic fallacies, and he would have to spend all the first 2 classes refuting the economic fallacies. He says, now I have to teach them the fallacies.